Hello and welcome back to everybody on the Rest Bay and to another edition of AEW Collision Out of 10. And Joe, an intriguing show this week. Lots of interesting stuff advertised, including Eddie Kingston versus Jalisco in a face-to-face meeting between Tony Storm and Chris Statlander. But we started things off with the Death Riders versus Adam Priest, Jay Lethal and Tommy Billington. That was after a quick array of backstage promos. The Death Riders came out and attacked the faces all at once to get started. The Death Riders were vicious in their offense, especially when they had someone isolated in their corner. It was hard hitting, but it didn't have a lot going on. It felt like an excuse to give Death Rider the dominant win, which the group as a whole doesn't need at this point. As fun as this was, a singles match with Garcia beating one of them would have benefited him a lot more. All six men did a good job working together, but Billington and Garcia is a combination we need in singles at some point. They look really good. Despite a late match comeback from the faces, Garcia got the win for his team with a Dragon Meter and a little help from a stomp from Moxley. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. As we then moved on to Jamie Hayter versus Anna Jay, but before that, Garcia finally acknowledged Lady Magic and called him a loser who was bringing him down. He said he's hanging around winners now. Even Mox looked surprised by how brutal Garcia was on the mic, but probably what he needed. But yeah, back onto the match. Jay was looking to prove she's come a long way since their last encounter, so she was aggressive initially. Every time Hayter tried to build some momentum, Jay seemed to have a counter for her. They had a couple of timing issues with her moves, but most of what they did was decent. They fought through the break and into the next segment. They got enough time to pack a lot of it into this without feeling like they were under time pressure. And yeah, without a couple of minor issues, this would have been one of the best matches. Hayter countered out the Queen's Star and hit the Haterade for the win. It was okay without being a great match. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Moving on into Chacha Charlie and the Shine Stetson, who were sacrificed this week to give Guevara and Rush an easy win. They tried to dance with Guevara, so he tagged Rush in to destroy them. Even though this was a quick squash with zero offense, and Rush going nuts on both men was fun to watch, and Guevara tagged in and hit a senton for the win. I think they could be a fun team. 5 out of 10. Moving on into Eddie Kingston versus Jalisco. Kingston came out with Hook right after the previous match was over, since Jalisco was already at ringside, so the next match got started straight away. Kingston was hot out of the gate, but Jalisco took control as the show cut to a break. When we returned, the masked man was still controlling the pace. Jalisco is one of those guys who never seems to get many opportunities to show off everything that he is as good as his brothers Rush and Dragon Lee. Kingston was already had a bruised chest, dared Jalisco's come in and chop him. It led to a high flyer hitting his finisher, but Kingston rolled out of the ring. When they got back in, Kingston hit the trademark spinning back fist, get the pin and win. A solid match that could have been better given more time. 6 out of 10. As we then moved on to MXM TV versus the Don Callis family, and yeah, it kind of seemed to surprise them. It wasn't a squash, but it was pretty close. Madden got in a little offense, but most of what we saw was used to give Fletcher, Takeshita and Alexander a chance to show off. The Don Callis family scored a quick, predictable win before we got a promo from Castle and the Outrunners backstage. For this alone, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Good to see MXM TV back, but yeah, a solid win for the Callis family. As we then moved on to Kevin Knight versus Dax Harwood, Nightingale and Bailey accompanied Knight to the ring for his match against Harwood, who had obviously Cash and Stokely with him. Knight didn't know who his opponent would be until Harwood attacked him. The Jet was able to really get in an offense to make Dax take a breather at ringside, but was just deployed to sucker Knight in for an elbow to face. Harwood had the advantage when it came to strikes, but Knight held his own most of the time. This ended up being the best thing on the show up to this point, which isn't surprising given the competitors involved. Harwood has been able to get a good match out of anyone, and Knight has been one of AEW's most exciting new stars over the past several months. They work well together to make it a fun match. Most people would probably predict Harwood winning in this situation, and most days that's probably how it would look, but this ends up going a different way. When Owens people prevented Wheeler from interfering, allowing Knight to hit a huge bash from the top. Megan Bain and Penny Ford ended up attacking Wicklow to save Stokely. They all played together, so it looks like FTR has aligned itself with Bain and Ford for the time being, which yeah is intriguing. And on the whole, a really fun match here. A big win for Kevin Knight too. So yeah, 7 out of 10 from me. Statlander and Storm then met for a face-to-face ahead of their world title rematch. Stat said they needed to talk, so Storm decided to lie down on the mat. Stat joined her and both women looked up at the lights as they talked. Stat says she respects Storm and what she's done, but she's not going to hold back against her. Storm said nobody is more deserving than Stat, but there is nobody she would rather beat. They ended up agreeing to have a fight and started brawling until the Triangle of Madness broke it up with an attack. Harley showed up and went after Thekla. This allowed Storm and Stat to recover and helped send the Triangle out of the ring. This segment was done well enough, and even though it was a predictable direction, they took a unique path to get there. As we then moved on to the Paragon and Orange Cassidy versus the Death family, Roderick Strong and O'Reilly teamed up with OC to take on Hedge, Archer and Romero. in the main event, O'Reilly and Hechicero started off with a nice exchange of holds and counters. The two technical wizards put on a good show before we started getting tags. Archer was the most dominant man in the ring. He took it all upon himself to take out supreme opponents. We returned to see the Callis family in control, but Strong eventually made a tag to OC, who squared off with an angry murder hot monster. O'Reilly made Romero tap out to an armbar to get the victory. A solid match, but it's outshone a bit by the other stuff on the show. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. All things considered, this was a pretty decent episode of Collision. It had a couple of weak spots with squash matches, but as a whole, it was 2 hours of good wrestling. The 2 6-man tag matches featuring the Callis family were decent enough. The segment with Storm and Stat was also decent. So yeah, on the whole, I'm going to give this show a 6 out of 10. So that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.